Marvel's building their own down the road from University Park and very delayed. The question here is whether Disney will now try to turn it into a Disney Park release as Marvel. Basically, yeah.
Do one of those. No question. Yeah, sure. Oh, really?
Are we recording?
There was no maze.
I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Superintendent's Information Committee meeting on April 7th at 7:10. So let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's start with the special reports. Mr. Leonard, IU7.
Thank you, Madam President. At the recent IU7 meeting, we did the following things. Approved and accepted the e-signature resolution, approved the Safe School Initiative competitive partnership agreement between the IU and the Pennsylvania Department of Education, accepted and approved the proposal for a one-year extension for existing rates for the first student incorporated to provide transportation for the next school year. Approved and authorized the WIU to enter into a 3-year lease with Jeanette City School District on the premises at the corner of Park Street and Washington Avenue, City of Jeanette. Accepted retirement resignations of several folks. Ratified the request of one classroom assistant for medical leave. Named Larry T. Lance to the position of E-Academy Program and Application Support Analyst. This was a internal move. Appointed James Desrica to the position of Assistant Business Manager. That was a new position. Approved the administration in written contract with Diane Sternick and Sherry Bosky to serve as registered nurses for this next school year. Approved the contract with James Somerville, Director of Human Resources and Management Services, from July 1st, 2014 to June 30th, 2019. That was a new 5-year contract. Approved contract extension for the Executive Director from November 1st, 2015 through August 1st, 2016. Also, extension of existing contracts. Approved addition to the teacher and classroom assistants long-term sublist for the 2013-14 school year, and approved a resolution in agreement in a labor case. And that's all I have for that report, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard. Dr. Trey, Libraries and Legislative Council.
Thank you, Madam President. Just briefly, really the libraries, the only issues pertained were discussions with each of the libraries related to the potential modification of what we're providing as far as an allocation based upon a plan that may or may not involve actual student participation. We were going to address that issue at some stage by May, and the libraries are aware that there could be a change at that time. The second thing goes to the Legislative Council. The only areas I want to address is I want to acknowledge Representative Dunbar. We are very involved and well thought out building project. There are several problems in the issue, and one obviously is prevailing wage, and we're getting information on this evening, and also we're getting information on PlanCon, but Representative Dunbar has stuck his neck forward and is trying to develop some type of legislation in order to get this process moving again. We're short almost $10 million in this process that could could really enhance what we're doing in the district because of the lack of availability of PlanCon and the abandonment of the state at this stage. And George has come to the forefront, is evolving a plan, trying to push it, trying to get his colleagues involved to co-sign on the bill so that we can get some type of organized and fair plan and also get some help at some stage. So I'm just throwing out at this particular time to acknowledge his contribution and appreciation. I'd also like to take an opportunity to congratulate our solicitor, Mike Brungo. He and his firm, he specifically have been appointed to the PSBA Advisory Council. They've reorganized the entire Pennsylvania School Boards Association process. I think you can see that in some of the information received. And he has taken the forefront as being the representative there as a part of the redesign and the focus and the proper legal guidance for our organization. So I congratulate you, Mike, and your firm. And a side note, this is not political, but I had to mention this. I noticed that one of our media people in here has received, matter of fact, Chris received an award for a Keystone Award just recently for doing an article released upon the tracking of our superintendent through the process. So, hey, Chris, you're up. You deserve it. Nice job. That's all I have, Madam President.
All right, thank you.
May I make a suggestion on the meeting here? Can we skip down to information 1, 2, 3, take care of those, and then back up to special reports?
Works for me. I think it's a great idea.
Sure.
You're on.
Jumping on there, we had a great season this past couple of months. A lot of great athletes to reward, and I'm going to turn it over to Carrie Hetrick.
Thank you, Dr. It's my pleasure to come here tonight, as Dr. Harris mentioned, and bring to all of you and to everybody here in the community tonight something we all have to be very proud of. A team and 2 individuals who accomplished things that we could only hope for at the beginning of the year. But what a great year we've had, and this past winter has gotten even better. And the first group I'd like to bring up is our girls basketball, our WPL champions, and I'd like to bring up Coach Giannikis and the girls and his staff. So come on up, guys.
Before I introduce the coaches, I just want to say thanks for having us here tonight. It's an honor to be here. And, I've been talking through this whole run, we're all in this together. Without the support of you guys and the students up here and parent support, we wouldn't be here right now. And I just want to say, before I introduce these guys, couldn't have a better group of kids in and out of the classroom representing you guys here. So, it means a lot to bring the first championship here at Penn Trafford, and we'll do our best we can next year to compete again. And wouldn't mind being here again next year, so we'll try. Let's introduce these guys. First, my staff, Dave Moyle, Brian Highland, and Jamie Brim. And then the girls here, we'll start. There's 4 or 5 not here. 5. Dina Biondi couldn't make it. Courtney Chowder couldn't make it. Rachel Kozaglow, Taylor Wisniewski, and Sarah Kasha. So they were all part of our team here. And the kids that are here, Taylor Karen, Jessica Deutsch, Michelle Bosco, Sam DeFazio. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Emma Mullins. Katie Brave. Katie, by the way, made all-section team in the Post-Gazette. Maria Pallarino. Maria made all-section team in the Post-Gazette, and first PT player ever to make a state team. Second team all-state. Right there, first player. Casey Young, all-star team for the Crib and Post. And our only senior, Kayla Sachota.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thanks for having us.
Our pleasure.
Thank you very much.
First you gotta get it.
Huh?
First you gotta get it.
I'm trusting you'll do that for me. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Last but not least, Marie and Casey had a medal, one for Dr. Harrison.
I got it. You know what? You guys don't have to come to school tomorrow.
Does that include the teacher?
No.
You got some ears to perk.
You might be marked absent, but.
I tell you, these girls were a fun group of girls to watch. As you know, I don't think my husband and I missed many games at all. Certainly not past probably mid-season or so. They were just a fun group of watch, a fun group of girls to be around. We miss you until next fall.
You know what? They made the snow and everything that was going on so much better. Something to give forward. It was amazing.
And not only
The
they
whole
won the
community.
championship, but I told these girls, and we had a sports program breakfast the other day, but not only did they win the championship, within itself is a great feat, especially upsetting all those teams. But I thought it was just phenomenal the way that you girls brought this whole community together. I mean, at the Palumbo, we had how many people that showed up from Penn Trafford wearing the green and gold, and that was something special. And you don't get that kind of turnout typically at some of these events with some other schools, and we do have that here. So it brought everybody together. It brought the student section together. The excitement, enthusiasm was wonderful. So thank you very much for that. It was awesome.
And that Hempfield game, you didn't quit. That was great character. That was great character.
Well, I think
Tribute to the coaches and the kids and the parents.
all the way through, right? Because you guys weren't preseason choices. So that tells you what team working together can do. It's a great job.
Great job. They left that crossover, young Maria, that you did in that. Had that girl in Hempfield.
Breaking ankles, right?
That was super. That brought everybody to their feet. That was super.
I don't know if you guys heard, but she's the first player in basketball history for PT to make a state team. She made second team.
Second team, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, well deserved and earned. So
Yeah.
We look forward to next year.
and we'll be back.
Okay, next is just to reiterate on what Mr. Ingley said. I mean, the way that group brought the community together at the end was amazing. One of the sports websites said that Penn Trafford by far had the best student and support section down at the Palumbo Center. It was a great site. So next, I'm going to bring up a freshman who we have here. He is our 132-pound WPIL and PIAA state champion, Mr. Cameron Coy. I'd also like to introduce our coach, Mr. Rich Ginter. Rich?
First, excuse my attire, I just ran up from the softball field. So, I'd like to introduce Cam to you guys, tell you a little about his season. As Mr. Hetrick said, he is a freshman, and wrestling in Pennsylvania is by far, probably the toughest state in the country. And to win a state tournament as a senior, let alone as a freshman, is quite a feat. When he started the season off, he was in a weight class that had 2 returning state champs in it. One's a junior, one's a senior. Naturally, they're both from our section. So he had the opportunity to wrestle those guys quite a few times through the season, and was right there. And he found out right away that he was right there at these guys' level already, losing some one-point matches. And talk about peaking at the right time. Come the WPL tournament, he wrestled the returning state champion, the state finals, and really turned it on and gave it to him. I think won 5-2. Really a very convincing win to win, become I think our 6th WPL champion in Penn Trafford. And then went to the state tournament, and we got to thank you guys, because without you guys we wouldn't be able to make trips like that. And I told him, I said, hey, the schedule's perfect if you win. If you win on Thursday, you're done till Friday afternoon. If you win on Friday, you're done till Saturday morning, when you get to enjoy Hershey and get to enjoy the whole experience. And he just started picking away at it. He was 15 years old wrestling 18-year-old men, that look like men compared to him. But I don't know where he finds the strength, but he didn't give up a point until the finals. He ended up winning 3-1, I think, in the finals, 2-1. That was the first point he gave up in the whole state tournament. It was late in the 3rd period when he gave it up. So just a great year. Look forward to a lot of big things from him. Naturally we'd hope he'd win more, but like I said, winning one in this state's phenomenal. So thanks for the opportunity, though.
Great job. Everybody proud. Great job.
Riley's jealous of your attention.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Three more to go.
Yes.
Marty, tell that story about him. His dad wanted to wrestle Goodwill. You tell the story.
Okay, I have one last student here tonight. she's another tough competitor, and I know she's even tougher now because when I was talking to her parents, I grew up and found out that they were from Braddock, just like I was. So now I'd like to bring up last our state bowling champion, Miss Amanda Ballas. Amanda, come on up. I'd like to introduce our coach, Mr. Bud Cummins. Bud, go ahead.
First of all, I want to thank the athletic department and the school board for all the support you've given us over the years. I've been with the program for about 12 years now, and this is our first state champion. Amanda qualified for the states by being in the regionals, and she finished third in the regionals. She averaged 190 through the first 6 games of the championship run, or the preliminary run, and it put her in a step down. She finished 4th total pins, and then she had to beat 4 girls to win the state championship. The semifinal ended up in a tie, and they had a bowl, a 9th and 10th bowl, and she won that. So in the last game, she won by 2 pins. It was a pretty exciting experience. So not only that, in 2 years, only being a sophomore, she's in the top 10 of total pins from the school for all time, and she has the highest single season average of any PT bowler before, and that's a 200.87. So she's pretty amazing, and I think we can get 2 more years of
No, it was here this year.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was
Congratulations. Thank you.
Next year we'll be on
Thank you.
these. I'm Lane and Man. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Congratulations, great job.
Congratulations.
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 You're going to be my partner, my only.
Hey, Matt, I'm going to say something.
Okay.
Hey, Mr. Petrucci wants me to. Cameron, tell me if this story's not true. I heard it coming along that earlier in the year you got beat by the state champ or something like that. I think your dad suggested, why don't we go down a weight class since you're a freshman, get some experience, see what things are going like, see how that works out for you before you move up to the weight class when you get a little older.
Yeah.
I think your answer was no, I want to beat the best. So that's
Part of it.
That's a pretty cool story. I got that from Mr. DiNapoli, and that's a great story there. So I just wanted to share that, Mr. I shared it a couple weeks ago when you were going through the Whippeals, so.
Thank you.
Good job.
And you're more than welcome to stay, but if I understand we have a long meeting. I don't think no one's ever stayed, so you won't offend any of us if you leave. So thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
All right, we're going to jump up to career
Tech. All right, moving back to our normal agenda. Career Tech, Mr. Petrucci.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. Meeting was March 19th. We interviewed 3 companies for the fire security access intercom system. First one was Security Systems of America, SSA. Johnson Control was the second one, and Vector Security the third one. The screening committee was Tim Wilson, who's our technology coordinator, Scott Miller, who's head of our building and grounds, and Carl Spudi, the York School Director, who's been helping us go through this entire building process. We are going to make our final decision at our April 16th meeting, who we're going to have for our new fire security system. John Cirk for Johnson recorded on the, as I told you about the oil tank, under submerged oil tank, and the renovations. We have to remove that. We're going to remove it. It's going to be, we got to find a bidder at $8,200. Remove it. We have to have the hole opened. It'll be done after school is closed. The hole has to be open for 2 weeks. Then after that 2 weeks, they do soil sample, air sample, and if there's any kind of moisture down there, a water sample to see if there are any contaminants left. And if there are, then they got to dig deeper until they can get everything completely dry and eliminate all contaminants. Now, we also had a report from SARP, same report we got here in the state, came through very well. The project is 75% complete. After school was out, the switchgear will be replaced and done by July 8th, and by that time, I think all the renovations should be totally done. The goodie report are potato and macaroni salad, relish tray, vegetable tray, homemade sandwich rings with capicola, provolone, ham, a variety of meat, cheeses, and desserts for coconut cream pie, blackberry pie, lady locks, and a variety of cookies. And our next meeting is April 16th, Madam President.
Mr. Patricia, I just have one more thing about the Career Tech Center. 3 of our students were honored by the Alliance of Automotive Service Providers for their academic and technical achievements in our auto technology program. Ryan Pearson, Lester Falk, and Alex Boyd.
I won't get that by March. I'm glad you got it now. That's
That was
good.
very impressive.
I won't get it. That is impressive. So our April 16th.
That'll be next time.
That's good. That's good. That's all, Madam President.
All right, thank you, Mr. Petrucci. Recreation awards, Penn Township.
Thank you, Madam President. Our meeting was on March 27th. We spent a lot of time talking about, we'll start with Phase 1. The completion of Phase 1 for the municipal park should be wrapped up June 21st. And that's still putting final touches on paving, part of the walking trail, and some benches that need to be installed. Then we had some dialogue regarding Phase 2, and at the meeting, the Friends of PTARC were there to give a $10,000 donation to sort of kick off Phase 2 project, which includes upgrading of the existing playground equipment. Phil, how old do you think that current equipment is?
At least 20 years.
A volleyball court, basketball, tennis courts, in addition to the, obviously the current fields that we have there now. That grant is due from a paperwork perspective by April 16th, which they're on target to hand that in. The total scope of project with work in kind and any donations that are made over the next couple of years is $450,000. The project itself will take about over 18 months to complete once it kicks off. We spent some time then talking about the relationship with baseball and softball organization. Just in terms of where they're at this year, they have 650 players that are signed up. They just gave us some milestones for their season. Talked a little bit about the triathlon, which is a bike run this year, obviously because of the work going on at the high school. And baseball is not scheduling activity, baseball and softball not scheduling activity that day. We then also talked about a park coordinator position. I guess they had advertised it once and got zero interest. So I told them I'd bring it up at this meeting. Basically, the responsibilities for the park coordinator, which we paid $9 an hour, and it's basically a May through September job every year, would be including, but not limited to, monitoring the park for safe conditions and overseeing the pavilion rentals, monitoring the organization use of parks, coordinating the fall festival, and the use of the park in general. So we're asking that the papers once again sort of make note of it so that they're looking for some candidates. They've, like I said, the first time around they got zero. So we then also talked about our geese issue that we have down there. There's multiple problems that obviously having that many geese present, other than cleanliness, attacking the kids, and just the overall dirtiness of the animal itself. But they're also looking to expand in that area of the park, which could cause some problems because the volleyball court, basketball court, and tennis courts are proposed to be over there by the pond. So they're dealing with all kinds of ways of trying to manage it. And I think actually in the next meeting, Phil, we have somebody actually come in and do a little presentation or something going on that they're throwing out.
We'll have some answers.
Yeah. So that's about the extent of meeting. It was rather interesting though because of Phase 2 and excitement around enhancing the park for the community as well as what was happening in Phase 1. So it'll be all, Madam President.
All right, thank you, Dr. Koshko. All right, Trafford.
Thank you, Madam President. As far as your geese go, Dr. Koshko, Mr. Leonard gave me some repellent. that they used before, and it did work for a little while. Then after a while, they sort of got conditioned to it.
You mean for their eggs or for
Yeah,
which?
For just what was it, Mr. Leonard?
Just generally, unpleasant situation, not for eggs or anything, just to keep them.
Because we've been talking about all kinds of things.
I tell you, lots of luck to you. It's, they get the young ones around there really defensive. You got to.
That's concerned.
Yeah,
That and open feeding of the ducks.
oh, that's what happens. People feed them and they just they think
They
they're
won't
being.
leave. They said if you're feeding them, they will not leave. Doesn't matter if you do all kinds of preventative stuff. As long as you're feeding them, they won't leave.
Yeah, that is absolutely true.
So they talked about how they could monitor that, and didn't come up with a good answer because, quite frankly, there's signs posted now already, and they're still feeding them openly. I mean, I've seen people feed them. So
That is nice. Well, lots of luck. If you guys find a solution, please let me know. Okay, we met on the last Monday on March 31st. Easter program is this Saturday at 12 o'clock. Supposed to have Easter Bunny there, all kind of goodies for the kids. Dawn's Pizzas is donating a pizza for all the kids. We have over 100 kids signed up so far. There's also that Easter egg hunt down in BY. We also went, because the terrace playground now is getting more young couples in there with young children. We decided to expand the program to the terrace playground, but the council said they only had one more director for the playground, so the recreation board is going to pay for the other playground director. Then we're going to expend their salary also to $8.50 an hour, and I think we're going to pick that up also, extra 50 cents an hour. This is all benefit of the auction, which is spreading out pretty good. Mike Ginsburg came down, Friends of P-Tark, gave a $2,500 check to the council for the new Westmoreland Park. It's going to be done right across from the middle school. Seniors, the senior citizens, so we reach all age groups in Trafford. The senior citizens will now, I think it's the first 2 Thursdays in May, we'll go to the Theater Factory, and the rec board's going to pay, the price is $13 a ticket. The rec board's going to pay for half, $6.50. So we're going to be a K to 80 group, I guess, and to help out all the different age groups. And so, because we had a few senior citizens that all you do is take care of the young kids, so it's going to be extended out to the senior citizens also. Let me see what else I mentioned. Our next meeting, we discussed the first Saturday in June will be the fishing derby. That's all, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Petrucci. Penn Borough.
There's no report, Madam President.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Trey. That it brings it to me. P-Tark. All right. The general account balance at this point is $95,500. Last year at the same point it was $87,000. So P-Tark as a whole is much more solvent, much more than it was 4 or 5 years ago when I first got on this board, when they were trying to figure out how we were going to make the bills at the end of the year. So that's good news. Starting in May, we're going to have an intern from CalU who's going to be with us for 12 weeks. She'll be working 40 hours a week, and it's of no cost to the district. Some news from Manor. Joy Klontz, I think that's how she pronounces her name, is going to be the P-Tark representative from Manor. On a more negative note, Manor has decided to withdraw from P-Tark. The effective date will be January 1st, 2016, and that has to do with how the contract is set up. Beginning May 1st, Cheryl will go off of our insurance. She had asked for a monthly reimbursement for not using our insurance of $490. We've agreed to $250 a month. On April 25th is the Dad and Daughter Night Out. If anybody wants information on that, I have it. Registration year to date is 980. Last year at this time it was 915. Cheryl had actually commented that it seems with the bad weather, more people are signing up for classes. Okay, the Chile Golf Classic, which was at the end of March, raised $1,200. There's going to be a car cruise on May 4th, and I have information on that. Facility rentals, March was the single busiest month they have had at the Shelley Proskin Rec Center. But for 2014 so far, they've had 44. At this point through 2013, they had 31. And my last thing is the triathlon is June 21st, so if you have any interest in that, I also have a flyer on that. And that is all I have.
Just a real quick one on triathlon. Mr. Carey, we've been mentioned school renovations. I guess that Cheryl's kept in touch with you to work around the facility here. Everything's out, because we thought construction wasn't going to start till July 1, I assumed. They can still have the triathlon?
Well, they're working that out, they're doing it across the street.
Yeah, I don't think they can change it at this point.
It's
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No.
Okay.
That's why I was saying
No
mention the
pool this
baseball
year.
and softball.
No pool?
No
She
swimming.
mentioned about the pool, didn't she?
It's like run, bike, run.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought the pool.
Yeah, they call it something different.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm sorry, Madam President.
Dr. Harris, the Community Education Foundation.
Today, the foundation awarded grants to several teachers throughout the school district. The grants totaled $20,005. Brett donated the $5. Two of the grants that were awarded dealt with the district's push on implementing more STEM activities. The iTech department received $6,516 to purchase 2 3D printers for the middle school and the high school tech classes. The students in these classes were able to make an invention and create a prototype to determine real-life functionality. John Milovac from Penn Middle received $4,952 grant to purchase hands-on STEM equipment to cover the topics of motion, force, weather, and general science. In addition to $20,000, the foundation also awarded Trafford, McCullough, Sunrise, and Level Green $5,000 each of earned income tax money to purchase the items they need to produce math rooms similar to that of Harrison Park. Since Harrison Park already has the math room, we also awarded them $1,000 as well to expand their room. So now that all schools are going to have a math resource room. A lot of work, and today was a lot of fun, walking around giving out the checks. Phil was on the board with us, and it's hard when we had to look at all we had about 32 applications, and this year we decided to award bigger ticket items, so we didn't get everyone awarded, but there was a lot of good ideas. Do you have any comments? Or?
No, it was just very exciting to be involved in the whole process, to see the hard work of the foundation. There's been board members on there, probably just a handful from the very beginning of the foundation that Dr. Clooney started, but you're seeing the benefits of this program now after all these years. Look at the numbers, and the money that's going directly back into this school district is very impressive, and to be able to give that type of money, this size dollar amounts, and really affect a lot more children. It's very exciting time to be involved. Anybody interested, we're always looking for new board members. You can contact Dr. Harris or myself. We're willing to take any and all.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Dr. Harris. We do not have a need to meet for an executive session. I do apologize for us being a little bit late at the beginning. We did meet prior to tonight's meeting. We received some legal advice. We discussed negotiations with the PTEA and received information only on upcoming meeting schedules, calendars, Read 180. We also discussed various personnel matters, including discipline issues, and we discussed a confidential student matter. Okay. Now, moving on to the information section.
Sure. Thank you, Mrs. Issing. The first 3 we covered with Carrie, so we're going to move on to number 4, Sarp & Company's audit report. I'll let Brett take over.
Okay, I'd like to introduce John Sarp, the managing partner of Sarp & Company. He's been here before, so you may remember him. And with him tonight is Max Fontaine, who actually performed the audit work this year. I have to warn you, Max is very talkative, so he can be here a while. But Max, I turn the floor over to you.
Yeah. I think Brett passed out the audit report and a letter of communication with those in charge of governance. I'll just briefly go over those with you. If you turn to page 53 in the audit report, you'll find our schedule of findings and question costs, and this is basically a summary of the results of our audit. You'll note that the type of auditor's report that we issued was an unmodified report. That is the same as we issued last year. It's the last year we issued an unqualified report. The wording changed. Professional standards required us to change the wording. But it's the best type of report that you can receive, so everything was good with that. And if you'll turn to page 1 in the report, that is our independent auditor's report, and you'll notice that the format changed a little bit from last year. It just outlines management's responsibilities, our responsibilities as the auditors, and then it gives our opinion of the financial statements. And as I said before, it is an unmodified opinion, and that's the best that you can receive. Keep going down on page 53. There were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that were identified, and our report on page 48, which is a report on the internal control of the financial, basic financial statements, that covers that part of the audit. And there was no non-compliance material to the financial statements noted. So, in regards to the federal awards, we did perform a single audit, and again, we issued an unmodified report, and there were no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies found while performing that. The report on internal control regarding the federal awards can be found on page 50, and that's basically the same thing as the other report, just on the federal awards. And you can see below that the major programs that were audited in the single audit were Title I and the special education grants, otherwise known as IDEA. So, and then if you look at the letter that was passed out with the audit report, again, that was the letter that that professional standards require us to issue to those charged with governance. Just a couple things to go over with that. If you look on the second page, you'll see that there's a item noted as difficulties encountered in performing the audit. We did not encounter any difficulties performing the audit. Brett and his staff were very helpful and cooperative with us, and we didn't note any disagreements between us with accounting principles that were used through 2012, 2013. On page 3 of that letter, you'll see that there's a section, recent accounting pronouncements. There's going to be 2 new GASB statements, GASB 65 and GASB 68, that will be implemented next audit period. GASB 65 just properly classifies certain items that were previously reported as assets and liabilities as deferred outflows of resources and deferred inflows of resources. And it'll just require a restatement of the beginning net position and require a disclosure regarding the restatement and its effect. And since I just went over that, it was required by professional standards that we change the statement of net assets to statement of net position this year. So it's just a different terminology. It's the same, it's the same thing, but different terminology. And GASB 68 establishes standards of financial reporting for defined benefit pension plans and defined contribution pension plans. And again, it will just be additional disclosures regarding significant assumptions and other inputs used to measure the total pension contribution, as well as other disclosures regarding elements of the pension plan's basic financial statements. Again, just to reiterate that everything went well with the audit. It was very smooth. and no disagreements between Brett and us on anything. And I'd just like to thank you for allowing us to perform the audit this past year and allowing me to present the report to you this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions of Max? Okay, thanks, Matt. We'll have it on the agenda for next month. John, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too after a long time.
Yes, it has.
Next on the information. Under taxes and census, you will receive information regarding the LERTA, the Local Economic Development Tax Assistance. The creation of the LERTA would grant prospective developers or existing businesses that expand a 3-year exemption of real estate and school taxes for new construction or addition, whichever the case may be. After the 3-year period is up, the taxes would be assessed at their full value as usual. The Township Commissioners have taken this issue and said it's better to entice a business to build or expand in Penn Township and forgo 3 years of taxes as opposed to the business going elsewhere. And Mike, did you want to provide us more information about the LERTA?
Sure. LERTA is a program, and there are several different types of LERTAs, but the LERTA that's being proposed is a program where an area is designated as a blighted area, essentially, and the taxes that are being paid on the property as it currently exists, the property itself and any buildings that may be on it, if there's a current assessment, they continue to pay tax on that current assessed value. If there are any improvements, new construction, additions, whatever the case may be, renovations, if it's the taxes that are generated based on the higher appraisal, the new value, that are then exempt under this plan. So it's not like taxes are being forgiven that are already being paid. What's happening is that for the next several years, I think it's 3 years under this plan, the taxes, the new taxes, are being forgiven as an incentive to get somebody to come in, develop the property, renovate, build new buildings, and so that at the conclusion of the 3-year period, once the construction is completed, they have that exemption on the new taxes that are owed, and then from that point forward, they're paying on a higher value. So the assessed value of that property rises, and they then, in the 4th year, pay the extra taxes moving forward. It's a way that municipalities, counties, and school districts have used an incentive to attract developers to come in and to take an area that has been designated as blighted and make it viable again. And you know, these are the kinds of things that you see. We did a number of LERTAs in the Uniontown area to try and revitalize, especially the downtown area, whenever the steel industry left Uniontown, and it helped quite a bit. So that's typically the program of what a LERTA is. It's different. You may have heard of a TIF, a tax incremental financing. That's not what we're talking about here. That's something that was done, if you're familiar with the waterworks in Homestead. That was a tax incremental financing program where essentially the municipality, the school district, the county, all kind of kicked in to produce the infrastructure, the roads, the sewage, water, electric, or whatever, to entice developers to come in because they then wouldn't have that expense. And that's a different issue. But the LERTA is very common, and we've seen that throughout the years in a number of different areas.
Dallas, do you have any information?
I do. I have a couple things I'd like to add. The current proposal before the Penn Township Commissioners right now is not just a 3-year, it's a 3-year full, 100%, 4th year, 50%, 5th year, 25%. That is the current draft that's being considered and seems to have a fairly good acceptance at the Commissioners level. This program has been developed in an effort to help to encourage businesses. It's for business only. It's not for residential development. It's for business only, commercial development only, and it's in only specific areas. The specific areas will be defined and are defined in the current draft in front of the Commissioners now. where this would apply. It would not be a blanket throughout the community. It would be in those specific areas. And is in response to the many meetings that the Penn Township Community Development Director and the Penn Township Community Development Department have had in discussions with many folks that wanted to come in, wanted to do some commercial developments in the community and could never answer affirmatively. There's always 3 or 4 different issues that always come up. One was there's not enough zoning to do those type of commercial developments. That's being adjusted right now. The commissioners are working on a new zoning scheme, and I won't get into all the details, but the LRTA, the tax issue, always come up with. Is there any way that the community would consider some tax abatement to soften our ramp-up costs as we bring our business in your community? And that was never an affirmative answer. So this is projected to be an affirmative answer that would take the cooperation of all 3 taxing entities. The school district being the largest of the 3, the county being second, and the Penn Township Commissioners in this case being the 3rd. We've had discussions with the Community Economic Development Department with the county, and they and with actually with some commissioners' input that they are on board. If the school district and the local governing body approves this type of a tax arrangement, they would go through it to all participating parties expected to approve it, and I believe that there's a consensus on the other 2 entities. And I would be certainly hoping that I am certainly think this is a good thing to do. I'm hoping that our board, as 9 board members, could come to some type of a consensus publicly to at least say it's a concept we could move forward with, but we can only do that in concert with the commissioners. They would actually draft and approve the ordinance, which is in draft form, and there's a time constraint that's really necessary because there's a couple of projects pending right now that this will probably be the single factor that will help bring those projects into the community very quickly. Yes.
I just want to say I was on the board in the 80s, and right now LRTA is out to new terminology, and we were approached as a board for a 3-year tax exoneration, and we're out there now by the Mellon Plan, which is right before Joe's Spaghetti House. You'll see the industrial parks out there. We granted it unanimously, that the board at that time, and it worked perfectly. It's still there. Why it ceased operation from then till now, I really don't know, but it was very beneficial. It definitely behooves us to take full advantage of this.
Well, in partial response to that LRTA is still existing. I pulled the draft copies. I had some discussions with the Penn Township solicitor. That LRTA is proposed to be this LRTA will be an extension of that LRTA.
Okay.
And they can only go for 10 years. And anything I say that's legally incorrect, our solicitor could correct me. But the maximum time you can have is 10 years. That one was proposed in late 80s, and it through that effort, it built that park out in a decade.
Worked very well.
And it's probably our solidest single, as regards to tax base and job creation entity in the township right now.
I just don't know why they continue, but it's a win-win situation. It's definitely, you have to prove it, my personal opinion.
Any other comments, questions?
Did you want to approve that now, Mr. Leonard, or do you want to wait till?
I think the township commissioners are looking for some consensus from this board that would at least give them knowledge to believe that it's something that if they move forward, they would be getting a concurrence from this board.
And if I may, this board would have to pass formal resolution, but you can't do that until the ordinance has been adopted by the township. So once they've done that, certainly, you can take action to pass a resolution to participate in that LRTA program.
All right, any other comments, questions?
I have a comment. In light of that statement, I myself would step forward and say I'm in favor. Is there any board member that does not see this concept as a worthwhile concept to move forward with it? Would there anybody have an objection or concern that I could help address?
So are we asking for Matt to go back and let the commissioners know, or are we asking?
That's what I was just going to say. Does anybody object to Matt going back to the commissioners and telling them that we would support or approve the LRTA program? Is there any objections? Okay.
I would like to see some letter of that sort put forth from Madness. I think,
Right.
not hearing any objection from the board, I think that's something that we.
And if I may, so then this board is directing the superintendent simply to inform the township that this board is willing to consider and to ultimately pass a resolution that will support the ordinance once the ordinance is in place. That you will have to, take official action.
Right, we understand that.
That's fine.
But we have to wait for the township, but we're saying we will support it on our behalf. We would support it.
And Matt's gonna.
And Matt's going to relay it to the commissioners.
Very good.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you, fellow board members. We appreciate the support.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about prevailing wages right now. I know the district is trying hard to do this building project, and we're studying all the costs, and we're looking at all our alternatives. But one of our biggest concerns right now is the amount of money that prevailing wages is costing us during our renovation project. And I'm going to ask Mike just to speak about prevailing wages.
I think this is the most I've talked in a
I
meeting.
Has he been here?
Yeah, the prevailing wage law went into effect in 1961, so it's been around for quite some time, and the primary purpose of the law was to protect state workers from workers coming in from outside of the state and taking over jobs on various construction projects. The law requires public projects, such as building projects and improvements, renovations, things of that nature, things other than what they consider maintenance. Any project done by a public agency, such as a school district, that exceeds $25,000 has to have the prevailing wage as part of the contract. It's the obligation of the entity, the school district, to find out from the Secretary of Labor what the prevailing wage would be for the region that you're in at that particular time. And the prevailing wage then that is provided to the public entity has to be incorporated into the contract as stated. Now, it's the obligation of the contractor or the subcontractor to be certain that they pay the prevailing wage to their employees. And in fact, you as a school district would have an obligation to verify, the information that they provide to you and to report any non-compliance if it were to occur. But that's in very general terms the requirement of the Prevailing Wage Act, and there's no way that you at this stage of the game can get around it. I understand that there have been discussions about increasing that $25,000 amount. I mean, that's been around since 1961, so you can only imagine what it would be in today's dollars. But that's pretty much what prevailing wage is and why it's a consideration anytime you do any construction, renovation, or anything of that nature that's significant.
Hank, how much is prevailing wages going to cost us in our project?
We asked your construction manager to provide an estimate for that, and what they've come up with is, their rough numbers say that there was approximately, on a project your size, an additional $3 million in labor costs above and beyond what it would be to pay labor at a non-prevailing wage.
And when you look at that $3 million, I know we're looking at all the different add-ons. That's technically the difference.
Yes.
Scott has that information as well that you want to share. We'll be asking the board to pass a resolution next week that would support legislation that would increase that threshold of $25,000 and to make adjustments for the actual wage to be more in line with what the local cost of the wages are in this area. The construction prevailing wage is about 10% of your construction costs, and over the last 10 years, there have been $7 billion in reimbursable school construction, and if you take a look at 10% of that, it comes out to about $700 million taxpayers have spent just on prevailing wages. And as you know, in our project, it's about $32 million, so 10% would be about $3.2 million, which is what our construction manager has indicated. So $3.2 million can go a long way in this district. And, if there's any kind of changes we can help to make in that prevailing wage legislation, I think the board is willing to do that. So we're asking the board to pass a resolution next week to support that legislation.
Does anybody have any questions? The medical refund, we received a refund of the amount of $473,197 from the Westmoreland County Public School Health Consortium that will go to our fund balance. Approximately 5% of that goes back to the employees in the form of a rate holiday, because that's how much their contribution was. We received the refund balance because the money that was paid into the consortium was more than what was paid out of the consortium. Brett, did they set the rates for next year, or is that still in their works?
No, they're going to set the rates at their April meeting. They did at the March meeting pass a motion that would limit the rate increase to 5.1%. So it can't be any higher than that. I'm anticipating it'll probably come in a little lower than that, as long as the trend continues as it has for the school years up to date. So we'll see what happens, but we'll know next month, or this month, the end of this month.
So what would that increase likely be? 250,000, is that correct?
In our case, it would be approximately $250,000, right?
Brett, how often in the last 5 years have we received a refund?
I think we had one rate holiday 3 or 4 years ago where we just didn't pay 1 month's invoice, and that's the only, there was one prior to that, prior to 5 years ago, but that's the only other time in the last 5 years.
So other than is their balance just got so high they had to do a refund to everybody? Is that what sort of triggered it?
Their balance, their fund balance got to the point where they felt they could safely release funds back to the districts because the reserves were great enough to cover any potential.
Any outstanding?
Yes.
Yeah, because I don't remember getting a refund since I've been on here. I know we did have a rate.
Yeah, one rate holiday.
Yeah.
Well, what I don't understand is we're getting a refund of $473,000, and then they're talking about increasing our rates by $250,000. Why give the refund?
I ask that all the time. Whenever this topic comes up about a possible refund or a possible rate holiday, it's always been the position of Penn Trafford that I take to the consortium that we should just plow that money back into the rate, keep the rates down. However, I am unsuccessful, and sometimes the only vote in the room that feels that way.
Okay.
I was told the actuaries would have done that way. Makes your financing reports much easier.
Does anyone have any questions about us putting it in the fund balance? All right, PlanCon, Dr. Trey actually talked about the meetings and George Dunbar's involvement with PlanCon, and he's trying to get a memo to overhaul PlanCon and provide reimbursement. He met with Brett and I and kind of talked about the same issues. Although we're not guaranteed the money right now, we're still going through the PlanCon stage, and tonight there are 2 different items we're going to have to approve for PlanCon, even though it's not guaranteed, but we still have to go through the approvals. Hank, do you want to describe the 2 that we're approving tonight?
The 2 that you're approving tonight is your...
Oh, not for tonight, I'm sorry, for next week.
Yeah. Oh, it's just for next week. You're reading into the minutes the exact wording that the state has given back on the 20-year variance. The good news there is they've agreed that you are eligible for approval over a 20-year variance on the reimbursement levels. All that's left to do is act on that exact wording from the state, and that will be approved. And the other thing you were doing is authorizing us to submit the PlanCon Part F, because your Part D letter has come in and your Part E letter was only pending that D approval, so both of those are approved. So the next stage is the F.
Thank you. I have a comment regarding the subject. I want to make clarification that this board has been and continues to make every effort to stay properly positioned and caution that planning and move forward with projects planning on money doesn't come available. That's a fair statement.
Yeah, because we never want to potentially lose any money. We're following all the procedures, and Hank has actually kept us up to date on everything.
And that's ongoing with what we're going to do tonight. We're going to make sure that we're staying continually positioned properly moving forward. That should this plan con money become more available, that we would be in a proper position to regret whatever we would with any projects we're working on now.
Yes, and those are items under 4 and 5 under budget and finance.
Thank you.
And we also we talk to our legislators. We talk to people. I just talked to George Dunbar 10 days ago. You know, we need something here. Come on. This is important. So, and he's on our side. He understands. But we'll see.
This evening we have a bond presentation, and I'm going to Brett take over.
Okay, with us again tonight are our bond team, Tony Massidi from PNC and Chris Brewer from Dinsmore Shoal. The board had asked that they update us on the current status of the market, and if we stay with our $32 million project, what that looks like. And we also asked Tony to put together a scenario if we extended the payback period to 20 years, what additional funds that could generate. So with that, Tony, I'll turn the floor over to you and Chris.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Quick hand up here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the quickest way to explain the front of the book is actually to go to the second section of the book, or the last section of the book, beginning on page 5. And that's where the market update will come into play quickly. And the best way to summarize what's been happening in the market is really twofold. Number one is our own economy. You've heard Chris and I address the situation with the bond markets over the course of the past 2 to 3 years, as it has really revolved around the bond market. The municipal bond market is smiling when the market is down, when the unemployment is high, when markets are struggling. That's what's driving interest rates lower. Over the course of coming out of the recession, we're still kind of grinding at it. And what we're really seeing now is, have we taken a solid foothold in this recovery? And that's what the market is really trying to decide. And what's really kept rates low has been the governmental intervention, basically forcing rates to stay low, especially in the short term. Really within the first 5 years, but that subsequently has kind of kept rates suppressed 10 years, really 10 to 15 years out, has kept them somewhat subdued. And you've heard a lot of talk, especially we've got a new Fed chair with Janet Yellen, and as you've heard her speak, they've wanted to begin to pull back on their support of rates and keeping rates low. So you've started to see things tick up, and we really saw that last June when Ben Bernanke was still Fed chair, and he kind of spoke, and maybe people are still trying to decide, did he speak out of turn, or did he really make that misstep intentionally? Because what we saw were not only rates increase, but we saw the yield curve steepen. But ever since then, and that'll be reflected on page 6, we've seen rates start to come back more towards where they were last summer, right around the time that Mr. Bernanke spoke. Another huge driver of that, as I said, it's kind of twofold. Another huge driver of that is the geopolitical scene. And basically, when you see unrest around the globe, the U.S. investments tend to be known as safe harbors. It's called a flight to quality. And you'll see the U.S. Treasury rates really start to fall when there's unrest around the world, whether it's geopolitically based, whether it's world economics. If we see struggling economies, and what we've seen is kind of a combination of all of that. We've seen emerging markets
not performing to where people had predicted, whether that be in the Pacific side or down in the South American range. We've seen these emerging markets really they're struggling at getting to the pace that everyone had predicted them to be at. The European market, some still battling a little bit of recession, some battling unemployment. Truly, the German economy has kind of bolstered everything to some degree, but still not to the levels of anticipation. And then you obviously have the Ukrainian situation with Russia. And everybody with a little bit of unrest, we see the dollars flow into the U.S. markets. So with that being said, you can see where that's happened on page 5, especially the upper chart, which is rates over the past 52 weeks. And you can see where the spike occurred back in June, raced up, continued to race up, and approach, and again, this is an tax-exempt interest rate proxy for 20 years. You can see that it went up to the 5% level. And since then, it's come down, it leveled off. There's some intra-week, intra-month volatility. But when it's all said and done, we're back down slightly below what's been the 52-week average in that index, which again serves as more of a proxy rate for tax-exempt rates across the United States. And highlighted in yellow is where the 2013 bond issue occurred. So again, rates higher than the all-time lows, but they were certainly below that spike, that peak that occurred in the summertime last year. Now with that being said, if you flip to page 6, and really the graph on the left side shows that spike again compared tax-exempt rates versus the U.S. Treasury rates, and that's basically utilizes the 10-year rate on both and how they track one another. And you can see in the red line, tax-exempt rates spiked quickly in June because of Ben Bernanke's speech, but since then the markets took over again and decided, look, we're not convinced that all this has taken this immediate foothold and that the recovery is at the pace you may think it is. We think it might be a little bit behind. So that basically has been keeping rates lower. And what we also saw, again, we'll flip to that on page 7 in a moment, but what we saw were people that were convinced that I don't want to be in fixed income anymore because rates are rising. I don't want to be locked in at a low rate today when it's going to be 1% higher, 2% higher tomorrow, 3% higher in 6 months. I don't want to lock myself and spend my cash today in an investment. I want to wait. And with what's happened is people have saw a little spike up, unsure about the economic recovery being full bore just yet. And they said, you know what? I didn't like the low levels. I didn't buy in at the high levels, but I like where levels are now. And what we've started to see are investors come back into the fixed income market. And you'll see, we'll talk about that in a moment on page 7. But just to mention, the graph to the right that's labeled yield curve slope, as I stated based on page, we mentioned on page 5, that rates spiked up and then have come back to where they were last summer. That's kind of evidenced there by the dark blue line that's marked by the green triangles there that kind of bolds itself against the other lines. The orange colored line was where rates were on June 19th last summer. A little more steepness in the front end of the curve, rates a little bit higher in the front end of the curve, but as you can see, versus the red, green, and purple lines that occurred last summer through last fall into the beginning of winter, rates have truly started to come back to where they were last summer. And again, how long is that going to last? We can't predict. But what we can see is what's causing that. And what a big mover besides the geopolitical, besides the U.S. economy trying to get a little stronger foothold in recovery, if you flip to page 7, demand directly affects price. And in this graph that we bring to the district, and it is really a telltale sign, as money is flowing out of fixed income, the rates are going up. And that's evidenced by all the red bars. That's the periods of time when investors are drawing their money out of bond funds. Bond investors are walking away and putting their money in equities or other asset classes. When it's blue, the positive bars, that's when money is flowing in to the fixed income, mutual funds, and the like. That's what we're tracking here. And as you can see, after late turn of the year and into 2014, we saw all these negative outflows of cash. Investors started seeing that. I'm not seeing this quick run up in equities. I'm not seeing it in other asset classes. So maybe I want to go back into some of the fixed income. Rates are higher than they were. I'm not buying in at all-time lows, but I want back in. And so as you see this positive inflow back into fixed income funds, we watched rates stay lower or maintain some consistency as to where they were. And that's what we're seeing today, is that rates are still maintaining that momentum of being, on a historical basis, low. Are they as low as the all-time lows? No. We are off of those. Probably not to see those for any time soon, barring any type of economic collapse again. And I don't think anybody really wants that. But what we have seen is a consistent demand now for tax-exempt fixed-rate investments, and what's benefiting that, the beneficiaries of that are certainly anyone going out looking to borrow money at this point or refinance eligible debt. And we're still seeing that occur straight through the beginning of 2014 here as we're heading into spring. Now, with that being said, if we flip back to the front of the book, what we've done is, again, the first option is reflecting where does it sit today, just completing the district's project, maintaining an issuance of total bonds incorporating the 2012, the 2013, and the pending issue for completion, maintaining the $32 million max issuance. And the projects, again, working with Hank and Per, the PlanCon docs, the total project right now, a shade under $31 million. So can we finance that project with all the other, every other component of the financing under $32 million? And maintain the desired term and maintain the district's existing annual debt service requirement. And as you can see here, the estimated completion with funds on hand and to reach the $31 million project, the district would issue about $12.4 million more, $12,360 right now, again, given where rates are as of today. And that project would take you out, and basically shown by the dark navy bars would be the completion bonds. The two lighter shades of blue represent the 12 and the 13 already being in place. And the room, the way the first two bonds were structured, allowed for the room to place the completion bonds and basically fill all the way up to where you're at now with your current debt service level. The back side of the graph is really a function of two things. Number one, it's the existing term that the district wants to try to stay within. And number two, it's where are interest rates? Because the interest being thrown off of this debt is really going to dictate how much water finding its own level. What size bucket do you need to put this much water in? And again, hearing the district speak in many meetings that there may be something in the future that needs addressed, that we need to make sure we're thinking ahead. We're forward thinking with our projects. That's why you see that we've always kind of run with it, a downward sloping or a tiering process, if you will, at the backside of the debt service. Again, that's looking so that once we see the culmination of all this renovation here at this building, our next project is going to be right ahead of us. Do we have room in the future to do that? And that's what this structure is allowing for. So that being said, in today's market, could we still adhere to that, fund the full $31 million, and complete it as it sits today? Yes, that page one is showing that.
And page 2 is numerically a representation of the graph, and basically gives a quick summary of what you have in this new issue, 12.360. That would bring your total project borrowing to basically 31.5 million over 3 bond issues, and that would fund the $31 million project, net of all other components of the financing. And you can see that going across. You see your existing debt service, you see the estimated series of 2014 debt service, the debt service on a combined basis, the capitalized interest to keep the near-term payments right at where you're at the $2.7 million level annually, and then the estimated reimbursement on your existing debt. Now, something to see there is following that is at 0. Maintaining that, we're not sure when the district may see any reimbursement coming out of PDE. So again, those zeros are there. This is bringing your debt service right to the $2.7 million level going out to complete this project. And then you can, if you look in the last, beginning in fiscal 2026, you can see the tiering begin, where you go from that $2.7 million level and basically tiering it down at equal amounts, 2.5, 2.3.5, 2.2, 2 million, 1.8, 1.7. You're basically getting a step down, which will again start to create room. If there's a project that may follow, you're now creating space to start filling that in and manage that annual debt service level. Now, flipping to page 3.
Donnie, before you jump there,
sure.
Help me, I'm missing something here. Maybe Brett or Hank can answer the question. The latest numbers we got was a little slightly over 32 million for the total project cost. Why is the estimated net projects funds only 31?
That was from the last blank on that we had seen that was
$1 million
30.9.
difference. Why is that?
I don't have the Sarah numbers with me right now.
I got something here from March the 27th.
That would be accurate then.
You see
What's the exact, it is 32 some
194, 529.
Okay,
So that's why I'm just curious why that, I thought those numbers should actually be matching on under scenario 1.
That, ours reflected the last version of the
Okay,
project
so that's
that
the
we had
difference.
seen. That's the difference.
So if you had the new number, this would technically be the same number.
They will be the same number.
Thank you.
Yes, exactly. And that's reflective. Now, the 32, again, if we flip to scenario 2, what you'll look at there, basically equating to, another, call it another $1 million in there.
Yeah, so the next borrowing amount would technically be 13.4 million.
Right. And you still, given that difference, as we'll speak here to scenario 2, any fluctuation within there is still going to fit, but again, it's a matter of term and how quickly you can start that slope and to what degree you can start that slope at the backside of the debt service. So if you flip to page 3, here is a scenario. Again, we still have a range of flexibility based on where rates are today and based on the way the first 2 issues were structured.
Let me start by asking you this question. Based on what we just went over, does that mean that these numbers here should also be adjusted by $1 million?
They can be, but this isn't really targeted to a project size. It's rather targeted to extending the term by 2 years and what can be generated by extending it 2 years.
So if you go back to scenario 1, if those numbers are adjusted to 13.4 and $32 million, and then scenario 2 then would mean we don't have an additional borrowing power going out with 20 years at 1.5 million?
If I'm following the exact
Everybody understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, you're right, yes, that's correct. If we need to put another $1 million in, his sample of 2.5 would become 1.5.
Right.
That's right.
Right. You would sop up that extra $1 million in this scenario. So basically, you would fall, if the base project is now another $1 million higher, you're going to fall between scenario 1 and scenario 2.
Okay.
Scenario 2, again, is just an extension of 2 years, maintaining that same slope. If you notice, it does extend the plateau where you're at currently in annual debt service of 2.7 million, a couple more years, and then starts your downward slope to open up the backside of the debt service.
but we extend the final term out 2 more years to 2033. And what you can then fit in with those parameters is a total project of 33.5, and you would borrow 15.3 million would be this completion borrowing. And again, the scenarios where you can add and subtract is merely an adjustment of how far out that plateau would need to go at 2.7 million before you started to step down, or how rapid your backside of the debt service steps down. And that's where there's a little bit of flexibility based on what you need.
This scenario 2, is that scenario 1, is that 18 years? Is that 20?
17. Right. Based
Sorry,
on.
I'm trying to get some numbers in my head here.
Sure. And again, the scenario 2 again was the only constraint here were the only constraints were the final term extending out 2 years from where we are today, being 2031, and maintaining that debt service slope in the back end. Those 2 things can be adjusted based on what the need is. If the need is, again, it was how much extra proceeds can be raised by going out those 2 years. In this scenario, about 2.5 million. Again, if there's another million added to the front side of the project, this scenario here would be raising 1.5 million extra. But if we wanted to extend the plateauing to the $2.7 million level out a couple more years, and maybe not slope down as quickly in the last 4 or 5 years, there may be another $1 million worth of room to fit in there, or $750,000 worth of room to fit in there. It's one of those. It's truly based on term and where interest rates sit.
Well, Bruce is figuring out. Is it safe to say it's roughly $1.2 million a year?
That you were picking up by extending? It was pretty safe. I think some of the numbers that Brett and I had spoken about at the end of last year, beginning of 2014, every year you go out, if you roughly judge it, about $1 million is what you can
So the
pick up.
1.5 is based off of how many years?
Well, again, the 1.5 about 2 years.
With the change in slope.
With the change
20 years
and
total.
slight change in slope.
Yeah.
I got you.
That'd be 20 years total.
And take you to 20 years total. If our base year was 2013, your final maturity is going to be 23.
Because we're
Yeah.
17.
Right, you're going to be just under that.
Right, you got 1 more year to play with.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at, yeah.
Hey,
Right, you can play with 1 more
I
year.
remember from a previous conversation where Nick was talking about the last building project, and PlanCon required a 20-year bond. Is that still
PlanCon
in effect?
doesn't
'Cause none of
actually
ours are
require a
in
20-year bond. PlanCon will repay you over 20 years, no faster.
That's right. You can always be shorter. They maximize what they
Thank
can.
you.
So
money
usually
after.
when it was a PlanCon project, schools did a 20-year bond because that's how they were receiving their.
And Chris can add,
Because I know that we're doing a 10 and a.
Chris can add color there.
Yeah, the PlanCon will, at least until they've started to change PlanCon, they'll reimburse you over the life of whatever period of debt you choose. It could be longer than 20. Their 20-year rule says they won't come back and provide reimbursement on a building that you've touched in the last 20 years. In other words, you go into a building and you do something, you come back 10 years later and say, we need to work on this building again, you're shut out absent some forgiveness or exception or what have you. So 20-year rule, not to be, is more of a do what you need to do and make it work for 20 years, which is though a good guide for what your debt terms should be.
Falls hand in hand with how to pay.
Right. And they won't pay you back any faster than 20 years. Correct?
They'll pay their share
They'll
over
pay
the
their
term of the
share.
debt you choose.
Yeah, if you would take these bonds out 30 years, they would pay back on that.
So the one we took out.
If you take the bonds out over 10 years, would they pay you back over 10 years?
Your annual debt service payment. So whether it's 10 years or 30 years, you're going to be reimbursed whatever percentage they allow you to have over the course of the term that you selected.
Yeah, but we have 3 different ones, 3 different timeframes we're talking about now.
So you still get reimbursed on those 3 different timeframes.
Okay. What's on the- okay.
Yeah, and don't pay, it's project-based, so you can borrow in tranches for that, but your rate is based on that single project with any financing of that project lumped. They'll view it as one.
So we're making 3 payments a year, but we submit it to them and it's only 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they'll view it as any financings related to project number 4639. just to
That's
cite
because
examples.
when we raised the millage back in the 90s, we staggered it over a 3-year period, 4-year period.
That's right, that's why it's like it is right now.
So Brett, though, if PlanCon comes back in, they don't change, so they will, you'll get chunks of money over the 20 years or whatever it is. They're not gonna stretch it out based on any kind of term that we did. So,
And in our case, if, and I think I'm right about this, let's say that we've paid 5 years of payments.
this is where I'm going, so go ahead.
And then we're finally approved. They'll cut us a check for those 5 years.
Okay.
And then they'll catch up going forward.
And that
on what we're
money,
paying.
if we had budgeted to pay for this without PlanCon, which is effectively what we're doing.
It is what we did, yes.
Right, we put it in, but we're not, it's hopeful money, but it's not right in the budget. So if that money, if PlanCon comes back, gets approved, money starts coming in, that money could either go, could you accelerate the pay down of this with that money? And/or could you take that money into a second project? How do you justify the use of that fund?
Well, I don't know that you can accelerate the payments because the payments are what bonds are. You could establish a fund.
Could you put that to a future
Right, that-
building project?
You could, sure, you do whatever you want with it.
It's your money.
You can put it in general fund if you want.
increase your borrowing.
No, Rich, no, Rich.
I'm just making the point that you can do whatever you want with it. No,
Okay.
believe me.
Can you do whatever you want with it? I mean, could that money roll into a general fund?
Sure, it's
Oh, good,
reimbursed.
so we could do whatever, okay.
I'm not saying anything wrong.
No, I
Chris.
understand.
No, but I want to drop a couple footnotes on it.
You got him up, he's up, please do. Yeah, he's up. If there's something wrong.
No. If PlanCon comes back, and if they follow the pattern they have in the past, Brett's absolutely right, they'll reach back and reimburse you.
Okay.
And so you could hope for a payday, holiday, I heard that term earlier, of a lot of unpaid PlanCon reimbursement due you, but we don't know. If they change up the program, though, be prepared, because my worry is that they'll go ahead and continue PlanCon, but do a few other things to it that they haven't done in the past.
Right. I guess what I'm trying to get to on the PlanCon money is, we're trying to fund a project without it. So
And-
anything that comes back to us from it in whatever
Is-
form is money that we can look at. Yeah, it's a future building project, it's a whatever.
It's a revenue into the
Right,
into the
okay.
budget that you hadn't had.
Okay.
If you go to segregate it, the reason I got to my feet is that now we raise some arbitrage issues with the
Right,
tax rules,
right.
okay? Because what the federal government doesn't want to have you do is to have a bunch of money in your
Sure.
pocket, and yet you borrowed and financed with tax exempt rates. Not a worry, unless you make money on the money in this market, you can't do that,
Right.
you're investing lower. But I have to warn you against creating some large money-generating account for your bonds. In terms of prepay, bonds have got some restrictions on them.
Right, that's, the instruments define that.
Doesn't mean we can't one day see a pot of money and a refunding opportunity to work both those in.
Right.
Okay. The only other thing is that PlanCon is a pay-as-you-go, and so whenever it's working the way it should, you get a reimbursed percentage. That times your payment, times your aid ratio, you get your check back. You pay, they pay, you pay, they pay. If you accelerate out of your own pocket, you say, we're going to go ahead and make a large payment because we've got the money to do it, and the bonds are at a call date, they won't be with you on that. They have in the past sometimes allowed an exception, but they got burned in the 80s when a lot of districts so-called defeased debt by putting up a lot of money to pay off debt and turning around asking for the state's share. The state ran themselves dry a couple of years.
So they'll continue to fund it, whatever.
Continue to fund it.
Right.
But if you do an accelerated exceptional payment, you may or may not see them match that.
Right, no, agreed.
So
But,
there's
well,
some
you will
nuances
see
there.
whatever that annual payment is still coming in, that you could apply to another project. Okay. That's
teasers or something
right.
else.
It's just a weird situation since the timing is now different than when
Yes.
it was always matched in the past. And I just want to make sure if there are restrictions to that money, we understand what they are and what our flexibility to that money
they're
if it
not
comes in.
severe. You got, that'll be a great day if you can get that money.
Yeah.
But,
What's the typical call period on the bonds?
5 years?
Yeah, right now, the 2012 and 2013, you have 5 years. And that's when they have bank qualified status that we've spoken of in the past, and the district has taken advantage of that twice now for lower rates and a shorter call. Once you get above $10 million, now you're in non-bank qualified, and typically investors, when they are purchasing bonds without any other exceptions from their side, and they're looking at a little bigger debt and bigger portions, they want to make sure that their interest rates are protected at least for a longer period. It's a different type of buyer in the non-bank qualified space than the bank qualified space, and they're going to demand a little longer call. Typically, that's a 10-year call as a standard call for anything over $10 million. So that's where and the nuance there is that there may or may not be, depending on the timing, depending on market conditions, a rate benefit there. It's just a different world of buyers at that point. And if a rate benefit does exist, then it behooves you to go after BQ, especially for the 5-year call. If you start to see rates slipping away and don't want to take that market risk on the remainder, then non-bank qualified, take advantage of where rates are today. And the only hurdle there is, and it's not truly a hurdle, but you may be looking at a 10-year call on that last piece as opposed to a shorter 5-year call. And traditionally, on any big building projects for a lot of districts, a lot of them do the wraparounds of their existing debt to keep current millage low. They see the 10-year call because all the bonds are in the back end. There's no bonds up front, so typically the 10-year call, and there's really no harm, no foul to the district because that 10-year period, there's not a whole lot of bonds maturing there. Most of the bonds are after that point.
And just to clarify one thing, if there's like we've been paying 5 years and then everything works as it used to and there's this 5-year payment, you can hold that money, you just can't have an arbitrage issue. So if you have your strategy keeps that below your borrowing rate or at, you're fine, right? So
Yeah, if the money comes in your general funds, it's a receipt, you can have it, you can keep it. What you can't do is take it and get it dedicated to debt and invest it at a higher yield.
Right.
You can't pledge it, create it into a pledged fund. It just raises
the auditors left too soon. They could have.
and the rule has been a very annoying rule over the years, but it's because, again, there were some financing devices in the late 70s that were, I always like to say, the dark side of the force. The sort of the other side of arbitrage was investing of your own money, pledged against debt, and we just got a bevy of rules out of the IRS then to stop that. So.
It could be utilized as a capital reserve account. It can be utilized just as an offset to your budgeting. It can be utilized as an early repayment fund, so to speak, but it just can't be triggered or targeted to any one issue because now you're talking about yield restriction to that allowable bond yield. But it could be, let's say, in 5 years' time, rates are such that the 2012, 2013 issues can be refinanced for savings for the district, or you just want to take advantage of paying down a little bit of the debt that's outstanding at the call date. You can now take that money, apply it to redemption of outstanding bonds, whether it be on their own or part of an overall refinancing, and that would be an eligible use of that money.
Hank, remind me what historically has been the percentage reimbursement?
Roughly,
Yeah,
it's
just
a hard number to hit, but roughly about 30%, and that's not off of the
32 million project. That's
That's
off
the
of
hard
your
cost.
That's
off
hard
your hard
cost.
cost. Of
Okay,
26.
so 26 million. So okay,
Still a lot of money.
If I
Yeah, so you're
read
talking
the
about-
Plan Con documents correctly, I think they were estimating it to be 25% of this project.
Okay.
Last one was 30% of it, right?
Last one was closer to 30%.
So it was like 25% of 26 million?
No, 7. It's almost 6.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's a.
Does anyone have any other questions?
Thanks, that was a great presentation.
Yeah, well, I have one. Is that 25% plank on D number?
Yes, if I read it right. I just got it today and I went through it really quick, but
Maybe send those to Tony and I.
I will. I'll give them to you tomorrow.
Your project reimbursement's always going to be factor times your market value aid ratio. So if you're looking at 25% on the project, you're not going to get 20 cents a dollar.
We get 60% of 25%.
That number's going down all the time.
That seems very low.
No, unfortunately, it's not uncommon.
Okay.
It's not bad, actually. Problem with PlanCon is that so much of it keys off of a per student dollar amount that's in the school code and hasn't been revised for 20 years. Well, maybe not that long, but for a while.
So that's a straight 15%. 60%, 25, so it's straight 15. Okay. So you're still looking at 2.6, 1.3, $4 million.
Yeah.
It's real money.
That's
tangible.
Yeah.
Certainly is.
It's an interesting education. It is.
Okay, anything else for Chris?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Tony?
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you all again.
Thank
Thanks
you.
very
Good to
much
see you
for
all.
coming in.
Scott's going to hand out or talk about the alternate add-ons that he passed out to kind of go with the bond presentation.
Yeah, in your packet, you should have received, you've seen this before, but I'm not sure that we update the order. I think in February, we asked the board to rank everything one final time, and the total ad alternate summary is still just under $5 million. The order of the preferences for the summaries, ad alternate is the high school annex is still the number one. Number two is the stadium restrooms. Number three, replacing the boilers. Number four, the new baseball parking site lighting. Number five, the additional tennis courts and parking associated with it. And the last item is the library skylight. And you can see the dollar figures associated with that. And this is all contingent upon $32 million being less than that. Massaro is telling us it can be anywhere, typically between 8-9% is about an average of our project coming under the 30. Well, with $32 million with hard and soft costs, but the project is $26 million with hard costs alone. So about 8 to 9% less than that is an estimate that they've been coming at. It's going to hopefully come in about $2 million less than that. Then the board has to decide based on a presentation today if you want to extend the loan out beyond the 17 years to give us any of these ad alternates. Anybody have any questions about the priorities or the costs associated with them?
I do. I thought we had eliminated skylight.
That's what I was just going to ask.
Where it says we
Well,
had.
it's number 6,
Oh,
so
it's still last. And
it's last.
How about least?
Well, I guess not forgotten.
You can cut
I
it.
thought it was gone.
I was holding on to it.
You must like that skylight's gone.
Stadium restrooms. Is there anything about those, if they're not in the original scope, that makes it difficult to do them later, excavating or plan changes or
And can you
site?
answer that for Mr. Newell?
Off of the top of my head,
Yeah, I'm
I don't see anything that would jump out that would make them hard to do later.
Okay. And the reason I ask that question is obviously if we get the 8% and we're willing to go a year, it's still a very tight fit for some or all these things. So I'm still trying in my mind to figure out, okay, what could be done at a later date out of general operating dollars, especially as we start to see maybe some repair and maintenance go down and things like that. And so if there's something that can't be done, I'd like to know that because it may impact how I look at it.
They are away from everything else on the project, and they're kind of a standalone with a grading aspect, so you're not needing dirt from somewhere else to do those, or needing dirt from there to go somewhere else. The only thing that it would affect is the possibility, and it's only a possibility, of an economy of scale pricing type of thing.
Okay.
You're rolling that into
Sure.
a big project.
Right, you're bringing
You may
stuff back in
get a
and
better
things.
price, or you may not.
Right.
It's just-
Something else to consider, Bruce, all of these figures, the same thing applies, hopefully
Yeah.
they come at 8%.
No,
less as
agreed,
well.
agreed. I mean, but I look at them like, obviously, number one, you're not going to go back and do that.
Right.
If
You-
not
it-
original
it's
scope.
in or out.
Where I look at the other things and say, okay, if we had this pick, but if there was something on here that Hank said, oh no, if you don't do this in the original scope, it's going to be very difficult to do.
Now, Hank, everything on the add-ons you said, if PlanCon does come back, is reimbursable.
That's again another, it's shaky math, because there's, PlanCon reimburses on a percentage of a number based on the amount of enrollment, and it doesn't matter whether you're doing this, that, or the other thing. So your percentage of reimbursement will look like it's going up or down somewhat depending on the
These are
total
reimbursable
project
items,
price.
though, according to PlanCon, what you're saying, or the cost of living now, right?
When rolled into an original project, for the most part, they are. The standalone toilet building is going to be a gray area.
Okay.
Oh, so if it was rolled in before, you have more chance of reimbursement.
Right, but it's not going to increase your total reimbursable dollars,
You're gonna
because
get-
you're going to be capped out with your
You're going to be
student.
$70 per student per enrollment.
Right.
What they
But
call.
if we do it on our own, there's no reimbursement. If we do it just from our own fund balance, there'll be no reimbursement.
The project is large enough that you will get the total amount of reimbursement you're eligible to, with or without that.
I'm just trying to say, if we did it isolated, like we did the gym, we refurbished the gym ourselves. There was no-
Right,
no kind of-
right. If you isolate a project at a later date, then you get into the 20-year rule that PlanCon deals with.
Just a reminder, the bid opening is June 12th, and we're going to have a special board action meeting on June 19th to award the bids. So the June 9th meeting is actually going to be June 19th, and we will start advertising that now and on the calendar, just to coordinate what's happening with our bid openings. And besides that, I only have one other thing I want to mention.
Matt, can I just
Go ahead, Scott.
The decision with regards to taking it from 17 to 19 needs to be made at what meeting?
If our bid is opening by June 12th,
So June 12th, you got the number.
No, what I'm saying now is if the bond is a favorable market now, I'm just asking a question.
You can be teed up to follow the bid opening and whether you'll decide you want to. We
Fair
can
enough.
be teed up to come behind the bid opening by a couple of weeks.
So
We
risk
don't
of
wanna-
interest rates.
We don't
Right,
want
that's what I was
to
gonna say.
borrow the money beforehand and then find that we don't have enough.
Yep. Especially a little bit short.
Right.
Correct. Because then you got all the costs.
Exactly.
But we don't,
unfortunately, we
We don't
can't
need July.
anticipate it till June 12th until we actually see the bid opening.
June 12th is the thing for the scheduled bid opening, so that's the earliest you would at least know all the numbers. That doesn't even know what you're going to award. It means you know all the numbers.
Scott, I think the answer to your question is the June 19th meeting.
Yes.
yeah, that's it, yeah.
That's, I think, the answer to the question, because we don't meet in July unless we call another special meeting.
And contractors have 48 hours from the time they bid to pull their bids due to mathematical errors or some other
So
thing. So
7
you
days
truly
past
have to
that.
wait 48 hours after the bid opening to really know what the low bid numbers are.
Now, you have plenty of cash to award the bids to start, okay? The only thing you are looking at is interest rate risk, which I respect.
You may want to consider making the second meeting the last Monday of the month. Give yourself more time.
Dr. Harris has a conflict with that day.
Yeah, I'm actually off.
Right. And the farther you push that out, the farther you're pushing out.
It's not going to be administration's issue, it's going to be our issue.
Well, we're going to know the numbers by then.
You could schedule both meetings and cancel one, that way you have them advertised and they're out there.
That's true.
Thursday,
I
Monday.
have no problem with that.
By Thursday? Well, we'll know the numbers by Thursday.
You push it back, you push back the construction as well, the
Right.
timeline.
Well,
we don't wanna do that.
and releasing the bond.
Yeah. I mean, it may be a robust meeting, but certainly if we have the numbers, I don't know why a decision can't be made on the 19th.
Yeah, because what's in 2 more days going to get you?
Right.
Right, that's what I heard.
You've been debating how long now?
More phone calls.
And we have our, I mean, we do have our order, we've talked about it, we looked at it, we have everything ready to go. It's, again, we're waiting for that bid opening to see how much money comes in short and how much more we want to do. I mean, we can even bring this up next week as well and have more discussion about it too. If we actually want
Oh, we've
to
got May.
move our plan.
So Hank, if I heard you correct, they have 48 hours after they submit it, so they would have somewhere around the 16th, or would that carry into the weekend?
It carries into the weekend.
So you'd know before that. So we'll have the numbers by the 16th. It's plenty of time to stew on it. Okay. And then you guys will be ready to teed up on the 19th then, right? I mean, that makes sense. Because really, it's how many years it's going on. It's got to go, it's just a matter of how many years, right? Yeah, but
Well, I agree, Tony. I think the board, has expressed concern that we're not going to have any room to do some of the other things that needs to be done in the district. So, in my opinion, based on that school of thought, which is a good one, that tiering is an important way to go. Right.
Does anyone else have any questions for the bond discussion? Before we go back to the regular meeting in this information session, if you have not had a chance to see Shrek, please go see it this weekend. It is an outstanding show. It is amazing. The sets are wonderful. The acting is amazing. The singing is amazing. The dancing, the costumes. You would surely be missing something if you do not go see it. So I encourage everyone, and tickets may be sold out. So please call tomorrow if you still want to see tickets, if you still need it. The show is amazing. It is outstanding, unbelievable. So I just have to encourage you, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, please see the PT Drama Guild website. It's amazing. You won't be sorry. All right. Any other matters before the board? And there was a long information session. I guess well, almost 2 hours. Next week, we're going to ask under athletics and extracurricular to approve a volunteer coach. Budget and finance, approve expenditures related to high school renovations for the month of March. Award the IU7 bid. Approve the audited financial statements and single audit for 2012-2013. Approve the resolution for 20-year variance request. Authorize Access Architecture to submit PlanCon Part F documents to PDE for the renovation project. We won't have anything reported under building, grounds, and safeties, employee relations, negotiations, transportations. Under food service, we are opening the bids tomorrow at 10 o'clock, so we will have more information for you next week based on the bid opening. So that is tomorrow at 10 o'clock if anyone is interested. Personnel and curriculum, approve substitute teachers and support personnel. Authorize Act 80 Day for 2014-2015. Accept resignation. Under Policy Public Relations, Legislative Title II, accept and file Information Committee meeting minutes of March 3rd, 2014. Under Taxes, Insurance, Census, this is where we're talking about the learner to approve ordinance regarding tax assumptions for improvements to and new construction of industrial commercial properties in designated areas of Penn Township. Now I'll turn it over to Tony.
All right, thank you. All right, it is now time for audience recognition. The following rules are in effect. You must state your name, address, and group affiliation, if any. Your statement will be limited to 5 minutes in duration. All statements shall be directed to the president, and no participant may address or question a board member individually. I may interrupt your statement if your statement is too lengthy, personally direct, abusive, obscene, irrelevant. I have a list of residents who wish to address the board. Your name will be called in the order in which you signed up. There will be no additional sign-ups at this time. Okay. Sally Bradley.
Okay, thanks. 847 State Route 130 in Level Green. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Ingles for being appointed as Assistant Superintendent. And secondly, I don't know if there's anybody else here from Trafford Library. Obviously, the most important library to me is Penn area where I'm involved. But I also do use the library at Trafford. And I'm not sure any of their numbers or people that come up with people that use it really show an accurate amount. Because I'm sure I'm not the only one from Level Green who finds it convenient to sometimes go in there rather than out to Harrison City. So I do hope that we keep that in mind, because Level Green, I'm sure, uses mostly Penn area, but I know they also use Trafford Library, because I do. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to respond to that, because I got a letter from, 2 letters really, Mrs. Peacock. And, do you want to speak, or you want me to speak?
I think you signed up next.
Yes, I did, but...
No, go ahead, I'll let you.
Matthew signed up next.
Okay, good, I'm sorry. I'll
Okay.
respond to that.
Matt?
That's all right. Hi, my name is Dr. Matt Bauman, 860 8th Street, Trafford, PA. I actually just got those letters that Sharon received from Nancy Gresco, stating that about the numbers. I made up some copies if you guys would like to have those and look at them. So I didn't know what you were going to say, Nick, but I was just speaking on behalf. I am a board member for the Trafford Library, so I was just coming in to represent. And I know Dr. Trey had came and spoke with us back in December about some of the figures and how the money was going to be redistributed to Trafford, and I know that it was going to be in consideration of giving Manor money as well. And that's basically what I was here to find out about. What was your reasoning behind the distribution of funds from Trafford to Manor. That's basically it.
I did a little bit of homework on this, and Ms. Peacock, the letter stating that the people from Penn Area Library said that the student enrollment for Trafford Library is 15. Now, I don't know where that 15 came from. We have our elementary school alone, we have almost 200 kids, and so that's not counting the preschoolers. That number is so far off, it's not even close. I mean, there's 15 kids living in my neighborhood that go to Trafford Elementary School. And they're concerned about a reduction in the reimbursement from the school district. That's their big concern. And I relayed all this message to, we have so much going on in school district now, but I got late Friday afternoon to Dr. Harris, and I told him, I says, you know, that there's a concern here, and I gave him all the names and the email address, etc. And what Mrs. Bradley did say, and I'm president of the Trafford Rec Board, and every last Monday we have our meeting right there at, in the new borough building, and once in a while I'll stop in, and there are many people from Lowerbury use Trafford Library. I mean, and also Pitcairn, and also Campbellsville, and also Ardera. I mean, it's a draw, and it's pretty well used. But to reduce their reimbursement on those numbers from Penn Area Library, I think there's more people from Lowerbury can go to Trafford Library and do out the Penn Area Library. But yeah, it's just what I've been told. So, but to decrease their reimbursement would be unfair. That's just that should be the wrong thing to do, and I wanted to express that. Thank you for coming.
I think it's probably sensible in this process to offer something as far as data that you may have forgotten at one stage or another, but we haven't talked about this issue in a board meeting for probably 8 or 9 months. And at that time, we drew data, which I shared at that time with everybody in the group, yourself included, Mr. Tracy, that we had to come up with a consistent source of information provided juvenile registration, because at the time we left this 6 or 7 months ago, it was based upon a figure below 18-year-olds or below signed up. We had to come up with one uniform source. The one uniform source was used both by Trafford, Manor, and by Penn Area. So we had the data researched. It was collected for me at that particular time by the 6 or 7 or 8 months back by the Penn Area librarian at that time. It was all from the same source. The person was cited. I shared all that data with you. And it showed a disparity based upon the data we used, which was juvenile registration. And the disparity was significant at that time. There's still a significant disparity between what is used at Penn Area. I mean, if this is valid data too, and it's not been updated for 6 or 10 months, but that's just where we are at this particular stage. Everybody fights over numbers. It's all how you want to interpret it.
When we did discuss this, and I do understand, the number 15 never came up. I mean, that is just absurd.
Now, all I can tell you is we got it from the same data source on a regional level that records it for both Trafford, for Manor, and also for Penn Area. It's the same. They draw the same data from the same reported information that came from all 3 libraries. So that's all we could do at that time. Again, we've not discussed this in a public meeting, and we weren't really going to do that until as we get closer to the May time.
Okay, but
But what we want to do is we wanted to be fair, and that's the most important thing. We want to ensure that we assign things on a proportionate level at whatever they might be. And if Penn Area Library has 2,000 students enrolled, and Trafford has 250, and Manor has 150, you know, that's fair. That's a fair.
Yeah, that's something. 15 was this came from Nancy Gresco, Executive Director of the Westmoreland County Federated Library System. So I think that's a very good source.
And she'll be a good source to update the data that we'll need for the Penn Area and also for Manor to do a fair decision.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Say something else with your numbers?
Sure.
Where the discrepancy is probably coming from. You get one library card that's good, I think, in every library in Westmoreland County. So you may have gotten, or you may get your library card from Penn Area, but that might be the only time somebody goes in there or goes to Manor. You know, it's like, where are you using the library card? If I take something out of Penn Area Library, it's my Penn Area Library card. If I go through Westmoreland Library Association, if I go to Trafford, it's still my Penn Area Library card.
Oh.
It's, you know, the card says Westmoreland Intermediate or Westmoreland Library, something. So, you know, it's where you got your library card, which may be where you use it or where you don't. I mean, I know I go into Penn Area Library much more, but I do go into Trafford.
I can see why that number got distorted.
So, Matt, just for the rest of us who aren't knee deep in this, how are we going to get the numbers that are, where can we pull that source so that Sally's comments are addressed, Nick's, and some of the other folks that have come here today, so we are evenly distributing? And I think we're talking about $14,000, correct?
Yeah, I think they sent me all the data on Friday. He gave me an email on Friday, but I already said because the agenda was so, as you see tonight, it's already been 2 hours. We had a long agenda. I said, let's just wait till next week, and I was going to just get you all this information.
But, okay, but
we
where are we
will
pulling the
find
numbers from, I guess is the question.
We will find the correct numbers and the source.
It has to come from this source. This is the source that maintains all the data.
That's true.
in the Westmoreland region.
That's true.
The same original source that we addressed 9 months ago, but obviously there's a disparity.
Are we able to
We're only
contact
talking about
Nancy
registration,
Gretzky?
not kids in the school system or anything else. How many kids were registered by their families, assigned to a particular library, on the data that they agreed to set up from the regional level. Oh, we have to update, we have to. This is the only.
I mean, if they can't give us accurate data based on what Sally said, then we're gonna have to find another way to do it.
Right. Because if they live in Trafford, but they may have signed up out of Penn because they were there one day, I don't know that to be true. I'm just saying.
Well, there is a gray area, as there is gray areas in justifying any numbers for any participation, any activity. It's the same thing we're seeing with PTARC or any other recreation participation uses a playground.
Population numbers would lie.
Well, population numbers.
I'm just saying, use as an example. I'm not saying
Yeah, you can have kids. I understand what you're saying. It is hard to.
We have.
As long as you use the same system, even though it will be a gray area to some extent, it'll be provided by one source. They'll be interpreting our data exactly, and I agree that it has to be from the Westmoreland County Library System because they provided the first data to us that was given to me about. Yeah, that's what we based this whole thing on. And we had addressed this for 7 or 8 months. So.
And we look at it and see the fastest common sense test. Like Nick said, 15 would have jumped out.
Yeah.
It was 15.
Zip codes work though? I'm just talking to Dallas. He said there's 9 in the district.
Yeah.
There's 9 just in Penn Township.
But I'm just saying that. Like, maybe zip codes is what separates.
And that's what they were trying to break down. They're trying to break it down by zip codes, assign it to libraries within that system. And that's how it was based on. I don't know how it was defined for me, but that was a report I got from this source that identified it accordingly. And it had a great disparity. It didn't have that split. Remember, Manor wasn't in the equation either.
You got to be careful.
Manor got nothing.
A lot of Manors in Hemphill.
Right now.
But Manor was already been excluded. It was only the only part that was identified was the district. Our district part of that. We got that part narrowed out apparently from this organization at the beginning.
Right.
A large parts in Penn Trafford, parts in Hempfield, and some little bits in Norland.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but a large
So
majority is.
and you have probably 3 zip codes overlapped in Manor.
They go by zip codes, all level grade Trafford.
Zip codes are really difficult to deal with because the postal system doesn't care about school district or geographic boundaries.
Everybody thinks Manor is small, that's one of the county inclusive areas, it's just a larger population voters in the region that we have. I think it's better, bigger than 3-2 and 4-2. I think it's only pales at the 4-1, so.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take everything that Nick sent me, make sure everyone has it, and I'll also contact, I'll talk to Jay and also contact Nancy.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time trying to come up with some type of a standard plan to do this equitably, and also to take time to alert our libraries. We need to recruit kids. We need to make them addressing the students, and they've done a fantastic job of trying to do that. They've been coming into the schools, building their presence more, working on that. That in alone has drawn a lot of enthusiasm and focus back in the schools. That's one key point. Now the question is, we got $14,000, we don't increase it. How do we distribute equally among the students? Yeah, $14,000, how do we do it? It's 9 to Penn right now, 5 to Trafford. But just think about it. If Penn comes back and the same report says, I only got $5,000 assigned, 2,000 students assigned, Trafford's got $250. Is that a $9,000, $5,000 split? And what do we give Manor? Manor was down in the same level with Trafford. Maybe they'll come up with 250 kids too. I don't know. I hope they do. I hope there are that many kids. I hope they're going and they're reading. We'll find out. It'll be fair. But we'll be perfect.
Give your homework stuff there. Get back to this next week.
One other
Thanks for
suggestion,
coming.
could you have people sign in the library when they go into it, and you know who's going in and where they live?
Kid, we're talking kid. Now,
Well,
our
yeah,
focus is
whatever, the
kids.
kids, or
We're talking
whoever
kids.
you identify, whatever.
That was clear from the beginning. We're looking at students, student
We can ask
participation.
sign in.
Another discrepancy
Under
tonight is
18.
juveniles versus students.
It's
Okay.
it's
I'll make sure you have all
Under
the
18.
information, and next week we'll
That's the
talk about
criteria
this
how they
again.
divide.
I think we already had the meetings kind of long enough tonight.
All right. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
You have something to say? No, you're making the motion.
Make the motion.
Yeah. Okay, this meeting is adjourned at 9:10, 2 hours. Thank you, everybody, for coming.